Hi everyone, and welcome to our Crowdfunder Sports webinar. I'm Zoe and I'm part of the team here at Crowdfunder. Hopefully, by the end of today's session, you'll have a really good understanding of crowdfunding for your sports club, including those added benefits to running a crowdfunding campaign. We'll also be looking at the extra funding opportunities available through Crowdfunder UK, and I've been joined by the wonderful Nadine Karoma from Sport England, who will talk through both of the funds available from Sport England for eligible sports clubs. We've also lucky to be joined by Kate and Rachel from Liskeard Looe Girls Rugby Club, who'll be telling us all about their recent successful crowdfunding campaign and sharing some hints and tips with you all. At the end of the session, you'll be sent a link to our Learn platform, which will show you how to crowdfund, giving you all the tools you need to run a successful sports campaign, step-by-step guides and training to get you planning, creating and running a successful sports campaign. Before we do get started, there's just a few housekeeping points to go through. We have allowed 60 minutes for this session, and that does include time for a Q&A at the end. So if you do want to ask a question, please type it into the chat box, which should be on the right of your screen. My wonderful colleague Charlie is in the chat box as well, so she'll be able to share any of those links that we refer to during the session, and she'll be able to make sure that your questions are fielded to us at the end of today's session, and we'll get through as many of those as we can. This is a live session. However, the whole webinar is being recorded and you will receive a replay link to watch the session back in your own time. We'll send this out as part of a follow-up email, and we'll make sure to include those links to resources and guides that we'll be mentioning. Just to make you all aware that yes, it's being recorded, but you will not feature in the recording. We can't see you, so you're not going to be in the recording at all. So feel free to have a cup of tea, listen to the content, make some notes, go away and have a look at those links as well. Click on those links as we go through. If you have any issues with your internet connection, you can click the refresh option, which you should see in your browser bar or just next to your browser bar on your screen, and you'll come straight back into the live room. Finally, we've got quite a lot of content to get through today, and we've got some brilliant guest speakers. So we've got a jam-packed session for you. We've got high numbers of attendees as well, so I imagine we're going to have some wonderful questions coming through. So we want to get through as much as we can today, so we'll get started. What I'd like to do first of all is I'm just going to put a quick poll out there for you guys to answer, if you don't mind. It'd be really good to get an idea of your understanding of what crowdfunding is. So first and foremost, have any of you donated to a crowdfunder before? If you wouldn't mind just answering that one for me. Just going to bring up that first slide so you're not just looking at my face. Okay, so relatively balanced, although at the moment it's swinging towards the majority of you haven't. Okay, that's great. In a way that really helps us because it gives us an indication of your kind of experience and understanding of crowdfunding. And on that same note, have any of you been part of a sports club that have crowdfunded before? Let's have a little look at that one. Okay, so again, similar outcome. It looks like the majority of you haven't, so this is going to be all new to you, and we'll make sure we give you all of the information that you need to feel confident about using this as a method of fundraising for your club. So let's go straight back to basics then. So crowdfunding in its purest form is essentially going out and raising money from your community and from your crowd in order to make an idea or a project happen. Crowdfunder UK is coming into its 10th year, so it's our 10th year anniversary this year, and it was set up to tackle society's challenges by making ideas happen. And to date, we've helped projects raise over £290 million towards making those projects happen. It's a rewards-based crowdfunding platform. So what that means is that we actually give project owners the ability to offer a reward of some kind as a thank you for a financial contribution. And we'll look a little bit more into rewards further into the session, but it's a really lovely way to engage with your crowd and to incentivize people's giving as well. Now, there are lots of additional benefits of crowdfunding. First and foremost, it's that validation, so building confidence in your own idea and seeing if there's an appetite for what it is that you're trying to do. You're also going to build awareness. So in respect to sports clubs, you're going to be really well connected within the community, but you might find that going through the process of crowdfunding actually broadens your audience, brings other people to the sport, but also lets the wider community know of all the wonderful work that you're doing as part of the sports club, and it creates a real buzz around your idea. Everybody that supports your crowdfunding campaign will automatically become an advocate. You're going to build a really engaged audience. They will go on and talk about the wonderful things that you're doing to their friends and families and their networks. And potentially you're going to create some really meaningful connections going forward as well. You're going to learn lots of new skills. We have some really brilliant resources as part of our platform. For some of you out there, just the idea of raising money on a digital platform is quite alien. It's kind of out of your comfort zone. We do have some really user-friendly resources to help you to be able to do that confidently. We've got wonderful things like our Learn platform, which we'll look at a little bit later, and that will teach you some brilliant transferable skills, which you can carry through to your future fundraisers or into different areas of your life as well. If you make use of the resources that we have on hand, you will definitely be crowdfunding like a pro by the end of it. And probably one of the main reasons that brings you all here today is that extra funding and support that we have available. So we work with over 70 different funding partners, both nationally and regionally. We've got lots of different pots of money available. And if your club or your organisation is eligible, you can access that funding, and it's a real boost towards your target, towards your fundraising efforts. We will hear today about specifically the sports focused extra funding, but do also be aware that we have local authority funding and national organisations which may also be a fit for your club or your organisation. You can apply for more than one fund, so it's always a good idea to see what's out there for you. We know that sports clubs do crowdfund incredibly well. By nature, you are all a competitive bunch. You've got your ready-made network and your ready-made crowd, if you like, just by way of your club members. And as I mentioned, normally you are really cemented within the community already. Chances are you've got different organisations which use your venue. You might have links with the local schools and colleges. So utilise everything that you have at your fingertips already, which we encourage and teach people to do in order to be successful, to really make the most of this crowdfunding process. Some examples here on the page of the different types of sports that have come through the platform. We've also seen things like free running and korfball and speed skating and all sorts of wonderful different sports that have successfully crowdfunded. The best thing to do is take a look at our website. You can go to the explore function of our website and you can search via location or sport, and you can really get an idea of who has come before you and the types of targets that they've been able to raise, and also how they've done it. Always take inspiration from those that have been able to achieve a successful crowdfunding campaign. Just a little look at some numbers, just to give you an idea of the types of the amounts of projects and supporters and the amount of support that they've had over the years through crowdfunding. So to date, we've seen over 300,000 supporters actually pledge on sports projects. 4,329 projects have come through the platform. So really nice big numbers. We've actually seen over £26 million worth of money being raised towards sports organisations and sports projects specifically. And of that, £8.4 million of extra funding has been distributed. That's just from our sports funding partners. So that actually doesn't take into account any of those additional funds as well that I mentioned, but huge numbers. So it's definitely something to consider when looking to raise money for your club. And speaking of those wonderful extra funds that we have available, we've been joined by Nadine from Sport England, who's going to talk us through the two funds that are available from Sport England. Hi Nadine, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Zoe. Hi everyone.
Would you mind talking us through the Active Together and the Places and Spaces Fund, please, Nadine?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got two funds that we run through Crowdfunder. So our first available fund is our Active Together Fund, and this is a 7.5 million lottery fund. And the key focus of this fund is recovery, reinvention, and building resilience. So typical projects under this fund could cover essential works, general maintenance to a facility, coping with the increased demand for activity following the pandemic, or navigating the current cost of living and energy crisis. So perhaps you want to make some changes to your facility to make it more energy efficient. So projects like that would be covered under this. And our second available fund is our 7 million lottery fund called Places and Spaces. And this is a capital fund. And the key focus of this fund is inspiring participation, diversifying audiences, and bringing people together, all in the name of the Commonwealth Games that were held last summer. So under this fund, typical projects could involve creating a welcoming and accessible space for people, changing an existing place or space to encourage new people to take part, and also improving a place or space to provide new opportunities for people locally to get active. Across both funds, we've supported over 700 campaigns, and as Zoe touched on earlier, we've seen wide range of sports. So we're looking for plenty more organisations and clubs to support. So if you're eligible, get your applications in. And the key thing with both of our funds, they're both available across England with match funding of up to 50% available to a maximum value of £10,000. And we appreciate for many of you that crowdfunding is probably a new experience, new thing that you're taking up. So together with Crowdfunder, we have a lot of wraparound support and resources available. So definitely tap into this if you can. I'll hand back over to you now, Zoe.
Thanks, Nadine. Thank you for that. Would you mind sticking around, and I'll invite you back onto the screen just to talk through the application process and obviously the Q&A at the end. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Thank you. So some really brilliant opportunity for some additional funding from Sport England there. In terms of the mechanics, we'll just do a little brief overview of how that process works. So essentially, you're going to be signing up to Crowdfunder UK and setting up your crowdfunding project. As I mentioned, we've got lots of information and resources to make sure that you can do that in a really engaging and successful way. You would apply for any funds that you had been matched with. So our computer system matches you with any potential relevant funds for you, depending on where you are in the country, what you're crowdfunding for. You would then, in an ideal scenario, be approved for that extra funding from Sport England, and you would go on to then launch your crowdfunding campaign. You would have already received an email from Sport England letting you know the pledge criteria and the milestones that you would need to meet in order to receive and secure that extra funding. So you'll launch your project, you'll start raising money from your crowd, and you'll be working towards that first milestone, which is going to be raising 25% of your initial target yourselves from your community and from your crowd. And that needs to be by a required amount of unique supporters. And you can see in this table here on the slide that depending on what your initial target is, you need to have the required amount of supporters attached to that. Once you have hit that first milestone, the money from Sport England will land on your page as a pledge. Okay, so they will show as a supporter, you will see that money go into your target raise, and all of a sudden, the amount of money you've raised leaps up and you're getting close to the finish line and close to your target. You then need to keep crowdfunding. You need to reach 100% of your initial target as a combination of the Sport England pledge and also money from your crowd in order to secure the funding before the close of your crowdfunding campaign. If you manage to do that before the close date and you have some time left live on your crowdfunder, by all means, keep crowdfunding. Keep bringing in those pledges from your community and your networks. You can plan to overfund your campaign by setting something we call a stretch target. And that essentially allows you to continue fundraising for all of those wonderful additional things that would really make your project be above and beyond kind of what you'd planned for initially. Let's say you're raising money for some cricket nets and you managed to secure that money, 100% of your target. Is there anything else that you might need which would really help the cricket club? Add a stretch target, put a little bit of text to let us know what it is that additional money will go towards, and just continue raising that money until the close of your campaign. Just want to briefly touch on as well our other sport partner. So we're also working with Sport Wales at the moment. Again, this is a 50% match fund towards your initial target. So up to 50% of your initial target with a £15,000 maximum. The Sport Wales Fund is supporting clubs and community organisations that are looking to enhance and redevelop their sports facilities, so for the benefit of the community. So whenever people are putting their pages and their applications together, always bear in mind that community impact as well as the importance of obviously the existing club members. Before we bring Nadine back just to talk a little bit more about the application process, in terms of how to apply for that extra funding, as I mentioned, you'll be prompted to set up a crowdfunding page on our website. When you are going through the motions, you'll be letting us know where you are in the country. You'll be telling us all about the wonderful things that you do. You will also need to allow us to share your page, your project page information with our funding partners, because many of our partners will look at your pages to make a decision as well as your applications. Also, let us know who's likely to benefit from your project, who you'll be working with, that impact that we've talked about that's so important. And off the back of those bits of information, our computer system will be able to match you with any relevant funding partners. And it's simply a case of applying from your project dashboard, and then you will receive an approval or a potential kind of improvement guide, which we'll talk about with Nadine now, from Sport England, but we are on hand to really help you to be approved. So do make sure you put those applications in nice and early before your project goes live. And I'll bring Nadine back now and we can talk about why that's so important. Nadine, can I welcome you back onto the screen? Hiya, how are you doing? Let me just get rid of this slide for a minute so we can properly talk. So we often see, don't we, that projects will put in an application ahead of time, which is great. We always encourage that. But you guys are really brilliant at keeping up communication with them, aren't you, in terms of giving them all of the information they may need to make sure that they can be approved if eligible. So what would be your kind of hints and tips on that application process, the things you'd like to see, or the types of things that you've experienced which people might be able to learn from?
Yeah, so when we receive an application to either of our funds, we do some initial checks on eligibility, and providing you're eligible, we'll then send you an email acknowledging that we have received your application, and also with some initial hints and tips of improvements that could be made to your project page. And we do also include a link to our crowdfunding guide, which has a helpful list of all the key components that make for a really good campaign page. Things that will resonate with your crowd and make it visually engaging for them, because at the end of the day, that's who you're targeting with your crowdfunder page. So definitely take a look at that if you put in an application, as those are the kind of things we would like to see on your campaign page. So it includes things like a guide on how to add a video, because that's also a useful tool. It's not something that we say is a must-have, but it is a really nice thing to do. Sometimes people don't read the entire length of a campaign page, and sometimes people just engage with things visually more than text. So it's helpful to have a quick summary of your campaign so they can watch that, fully understand what's going on. It's just little things like making your text really engaging, have lots of bold text. If you've got key information that you want to get across, highlight that so people can see that immediately. And one of the biggest things, which I'm sure you'll pick up on later, Zoe, is rewards. Having rewards that will not only resonate with your members, but also things that will attract new support. So one of the things that we've seen that are quite popular is having things like takeaway vouchers and salon vouchers, things like that. So it's kind of you get a pledge from a new person, but also they get something in return as well.
Amazing, thank you. That's awesome. With that in mind, the next slide, I think, sums it up really nicely. So I will pull this one up, and would you mind joining me at the Q&A at the end? And I'm sure there's going to be some questions about the fund itself. Thanks, Nadine.
No problem.
Okay, so with all of that in mind, this is a nice example of a recent page, and you can see just how visual it is to begin with. We've got the video at the top there. One piece of advice with videos, if you're going to do it, is they don't need to be long, nice and short, a minute to a minute and a half. Try and use club members as much as you can. Be on location if possible. Make them personable. You know, if you've got a youth team, for example, they're normally the ones that feel the most confident getting in front of a camera. So quite often we see a lot of the kids teams getting involved, and it's really lovely. And it's a brilliant thing for parents and grandparents to then, you know, see and share and get behind as well. We know a format that works really well when it comes to creating an engaging page, so much so that we've actually created a template for sports projects. So when you sign up to crowdfunder.co.uk, if you come through the sports page, so you can select your specific sport, or you can just start crowdfunding under the sports section. You will be prompted to set up a page following that format that Nadine's just mentioned. Nice clear headers. It will prompt you to put some concise text there, just letting us know who you are, your community impact, what it is that you're crowdfunding for, picking out any of that information in bold, packing it full of really interesting visuals as well. We do encourage you to change the headers though, wherever possible. Make them personal to the club and to the project, but do make use of that template. And on to rewards. So that's one of the other things that Nadine mentioned, especially when it comes to that approval for extra funding. Have a really lovely varied mix of rewards on your page. Think about your existing club members. So things like coaching sessions work really well, discounted membership possibly, venue hire if you've got, you know, a club bar or a space that you use in the club. Could you offer out a venue hire or maybe a bar tab, for example, but then also reach out to the wider community. So you can see on here some really interesting rewards. We've got fish and chip vouchers, we've got discounted conversational Greek lessons, which is awesome. And we've got things like MOTs and accounting services, which are poles away from anything to do with sports, but actually it's things that people might need in their day-to-day life. And if they can get that at a discounted rate via your crowdfunding page, they're doing something great with their money, it's going towards a good cause, and they're actually getting something back that they need and want as well. So always have your two audiences in mind with every part of your campaign. Think about your existing club members, what will resonate with them in terms of engagement and rewards, but then also think about that wider community that won't have a pre-existing relationship with the club, but might really want to support you down the line as well. You can also opt to multiply your crowdfunder. What this means is you can give your supporters the ability to raise money on your behalf so they can become a fundraiser. This is a lovely example of a recent project that's done that. So the Liverpool Cricket Club, they had 12 separate individual fundraisers. So all the different club members took it upon themselves to set up their own fundraisers and raise money individually towards the main target. If you do decide to go for this option, all the money raised by those individual fundraisers and all of their supporter numbers will automatically funnel onto your main project page. It can be a really great way to help you hit those milestones required in terms of accessing that extra funding, so that 25% from the amount of unique supporters. So definitely something to bear in mind. Again, with sports, it might be that you want to set a particular challenge or kind of pit teams against one another to see who can raise the most, who can, run, swim, walk the furthest, whatever it might be. But it can be a really lovely thing to help engage your club and also the local community in your fundraising efforts. So speaking of a brilliant project that have managed to really embrace the crowdfunding and have had a lovely successful campaign, I'd love to welcome to the screen Kate and Rachel from Liskeard Looe Girls Rugby Club. Hi there.
Hi everyone.
Hi Rachel, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us today. And I feel like we should be in the same room because we're actually all in Cornwall, aren't we? But we're just on different sides of the coast, pretty much. How are you both doing?
Yeah, really good, thank you.
Yeah, really well, thank you.
Amazing. Well done on your crowdfunding efforts. What a brilliant result. And 92 supporters is massive as well. So that's awesome. And you did actually receive extra funding from Sport England as well as Cornwall Council. So that kind of really helps to demonstrate what I was saying earlier, that you can receive money from different funding partners too, which is great. Would you mind telling us a little bit about your project?
Yeah, of course. Shall I start, Rachel?
You start.
So effectively, Looe and Liskeard Rugby Club. So it's a long-established club. It's reasonably successful, but the girls section has sort of always been quite up and down. So pre-pandemic, I think we had about 7 or 8 girls playing across age groups. It was quite tough. Coming out of the pandemic, though, like the club really started to grow. So lots of girls wanting to come in and try rugby. And we were sort of getting to the end of any usable kit. So we were running out of kit. Like the kit was very old and smelly, wasn't very nice. It was putting girls off. And also, we'd had a bit of sponsorship we found some local partners to sponsor some kind of match tops, etc., which was lovely. But then we found that we didn't have enough of them. So we had issues with, kind of girls, us wanting to help them feel like the team. So we had a number of areas where we sort of identified that we really wanted to raise some money to basically enable any of the local girls that could possibly want to try it to be able to come along, to not have to fork out loads of money, to enjoy, a really fab game and to build their confidence and their sort of physicality, which is what it does. So, so that was sort of what we were sort of aiming for. We had a look at other routes. So sort of professionally, I'm very used to bid writing. We had a look around the various bids and it's okay. We were sort of looking around some of those, but they can be quite complicated and quite long-winded and all of that. And we were aware of crowdfunding. So we came and did a webinar like people here are doing to go on then. How easy and difficult is this? So we started on a webinar. That's where we started, wasn't it, Rachel?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we watched this and then we, went and had a drink and went, okay, what do we understand by all of this? And it probably took us, it was probably about 2 months from watching the webinar to basically pressing go live. In terms of us putting all of our ducks in a row, kind of understanding what we were up to, trying to think about all the various different component parts that, we were hoping that would make it successful. So it wasn't 2 months of lots and lots of hard work, but it was just setting everything up to be successful. So that was our project really, and that's how we started.
That's amazing. What a lovely full circle. And here you are as guest speakers, basically having one of the most kind of perfect examples of this is what a page should look like. This is what a varied selection of rewards looks like. So yeah, you obviously took it on board and you did all of the hard work in the lead up, which is brilliant because you probably found, I imagine, that by putting in that kind of planning ahead of time, the actual live campaign was maybe a little bit easier to be reactive because you had all those ducks in a row. Would you also say that having, a few of you on board and actually being able to utilize skill sets rather than doing a bit of a solo mission was beneficial for you guys?
Yeah. So,
Rachel's like, yes.
yeah. So I think it's probably fair to say I'm good at spreadsheets and the kind of getting the due diligence stuff and governance stuff together and doing those admin as well. And Kate is definitely really great at the writing and the marketing and everything else. I think I think probably the pair of us together it worked really well.
Yeah.
And the social media side of it as well. Kate, you were absolutely brilliant with that. So and that's really important to kind of keep the interest going as you're going through once you've launched, you then have to step into that kind of, it's almost like there's two distinct processes. As you're setting up, and then there's the bit after you launch and keeping the interest going and keeping the social media particularly going, really, in terms of gathering your crowd around you.
You're so right. And it's having that knowledge up front to understand that will be part of the live campaign, maybe even having some of those images or ideas of what you want to post even before going live, to make sure you've got kind of content at your fingertips to keep that momentum going. Sounds like a bit of a dream team. Well done.
I think, definitely the sharing of skills and two people holding on to it really made it possible. I'd highly recommend you don't do it solo, because there was us in the middle holding it, and then we had obviously the club and parents and other people supporting, but actually us sitting in the middle of it and two of us doing that. We set up things like we set up an Outlook account, which meant that we had a single email address that both of us could go into, administer from. We were both administering on the page. It basically made that a whole lot easier. When we started thinking about it as well, we had really poor social media. We had a page, and I think there'd been 2 posts in about 18 months. So it was quite, we had hardly any followers, all of that. So in the 2 months while we were prepping the crowdfunder, basically I started really pushing the page with lots of other stuff. So we were taking photos of every training session, every match. We were finding stuff. We were basically building some momentum through our social media, so that when our crowdfunder campaign launched, we had some more people behind us already, because they'd started to see our social media stuff. That really helped. That helped a lot, because it helped have a momentum and keep it too. So yeah, definitely was important. I'm sure lots of other clubs are already all over the social media. Ours was just really, really dreadful.
But now it's not.
Now it's not. Now it's not.
Added benefit of crowdfunding, you see.
Definitely.
Yeah, it really was.
That's really good. And the thing is, there may be people, sitting in the room today that are thinking, well, I don't have somebody else I can reach out to. But I would always recommend that, even if it, like you said, parents, club members, even friends and family that aren't connected specifically to the club, it's about having another set of eyes, someone to bounce ideas off and maybe draw on people's skill sets, just like you guys have, is really important if they can do that. It's always nice to have people around you to kind of prop you up and give you a pep talk if it's going a bit slow, for example, as well, isn't it?
And just be brave. A lot of it was being really brave. We effectively, in the 2 months we were setting it up, literally sort of created lists. We trawled social media, got hold of emails, and basically just put asks out to businesses, going, can you do one of 3 things? Can you give us a reward? Can you tell everybody about what we're doing? Or do you just want to give us a donation? Any of those things. And we sort of started with local businesses, and then we got a bit brave. At one point I went, who else would be interested in girls and rugby? Right, female-led businesses. Okay, internet search. And I sent an email off, and there was an amazing accountancy company that was female-led going, oh my God, this is lovely. We'll give you 100 quid. Of course. Oh, okay. So, it was also really surprising and heartwarming, that we were getting support in lots of different directions as well. That was really unheard of. We had current sponsors of the main club going, well, we already sponsor the main club, we can't really do any more. But what we'll do is we'll shout about it on our social media. I mean, our social media, I make it sound very grand. We have got a Facebook page. I can't do anything else. That's my limit. Hopefully in the future, we'll get some really sparky members of the team who want to set up the TikTok and the whatever. The girls do run an Instagram account, but, basically we did Facebook. And that is one thing that I suppose we learn is Facebook algorithms are not kind. They're not kind. They will bury your posts. You have to get very devious about how you talk about it because you're not using their fundraising platform. So I never realized this before. When you see social media posts on Facebook and it says link in bio, it's because otherwise the algorithm hides requests for money, requests for donations. So that's why lots of people do it. I didn't realize that, but I took advice from another crowdfunding campaign going like, I'm posting stuff and like my friends and family aren't seeing it. How do you do it? And it was like, you have to get round the Facebook algorithms.
What would be your gold piece of advice to sneak past the algorithms?
So
put it in the comments.
Put it in the comments. So that's one. Get everybody that you know that's connected to like and save the post, because then the algorithm thinks it's an important thing and lots of people like it. So anyone that you know on the page, like separately message them and go, when I post this, go and find it and then save it onto your liked. That's one of them. Put things like link in bio when you're talking about it. It's, I mean, not all of it's successful. You just sort of have to keep going. Use Messenger. Message everyone you can with the actual link to the crowdfunder. You can't just rely on Facebook. And WhatsApp groups help as well. But telling everybody to follow, like, comment on any of the posts you're putting out by crowdfunder with your crowdfunder will help keep them visible.
The other really useful thing as a sports club is that if you and yourself and your parents play other sports and have other sports teams and clubs that they're involved in, is actually sharing it with them as well. So we had quite a few donations come through from other teams that myself and some of the girls play with as well, and they've donated quite a lot. So that's another really useful route. But again, that's using Messenger and WhatsApp rather than sort of the Facebook and asking them to share it through them.
It's nice. Sorry.
And tagging everyone in your post, tagging all your local people. So the local town council, the local radios, like whoever, the schools, tagging them endlessly. I'm sure sometimes they got quite sick of us, but
the thing is, it's only for a short duration, isn't it? It's only that really kind of 4 to 5 weeks of a live campaign. So it's almost like just going at it for that length of time, and then nobody has to hear about it for a little while until you come back and do another one. But while it's live, it is about keeping up that momentum. But I think what's lovely to hear you talk about as well is getting in touch with people in different ways. We always recommend that if you normally have a conversation, just go and talk to them, or pick up the phone, or use Messenger or WhatsApp. Just purely doing a social media campaign or just purely using emails because you've got a mailing list won't yield as much results as actually sticking with those primary sources of how you communicate with people generally. So that's nice to hear that you kind of did use that mix as well.
We also did the traditional posters and QR codes as well, so we used that and put all those around as well. So that was really helpful.
Amazing. And then I think, because we've got some brilliant questions coming through, and I'd love to make sure we get through as many of those as possible with everybody. Would you have that kind of takeaway piece of advice for anybody that's thinking about crowdfunding? And I think most people here today, it's going to be quite a new concept for them. What advice would you give them based on your recent experience if they're thinking about crowdfunding but might be a bit unsure at the moment?
I think take a little bit of time to set it up. As soon as you start filling in your page, it doesn't go live. You've got time to play around. You can share drafts with it for everyone so that you can get it right. Sport England funding our experience was the first time we published our page, they gave us advice back. It wasn't eligible the first time we published. And that was brilliant. We just took all of that on board and had some time. My top tip is don't ever use the word invest on your page. Say that gave us a weekend of nightmares. We didn't realise basically our page went for manual review. We were talking about investing in the girls, not any money investment, but obviously it picked it up as problematic. So it sort of, that gave us a bit of a stuttery start. Yeah. We also did a soft launch. So that magic 25%, which then yields in the Sport England, we did a lot of thinking about where that could possibly come from. And we did lots of calculations going, well, if every member of the team found, £30 of people to donate or buy rewards. So we didn't launch it. We soft launched it with our nearest and dearest for 2 days going, please, can you do your bit now? That will really help so that it looks like a really, really successful campaign as soon as we start shouting about it. So we gave everyone like 48 hours of exclusive access to buy all the really brilliant rewards first. And then we started shouting about it. So it just meant that when we were publicly talking to people that might not know us very well, it looked like lots of people really cared. Well, and they did. It's not that they looked, they did care. And I suppose that was one of the, I don't know, we felt quite proud of that sneaky trick.
Yeah.
It's just music to my ears, because this is like you've taken the webinar and the things we talk about and you actually put it into action and then it yields the results. This is amazing. But what I love is the way you kind of sold it as that exclusive access, come and get first access to these brilliant rewards. Like, what a lovely way to kind of promote that to your close network. I think that's a fab tip for people to take on board. Really great advice. What about you, Rachel? Is there anything to take away from you?
I think from more of the kind of backroom nuts and bolts perspective, I think definitely get a separate email address for your crowdfunder, because that, as well as being really useful, it actually gives a bit of if someone's emailing you, they think, right, this is proper. It's not kind of, mum123 at Gmail. It's actually the club. And also make sure that you've been through the committee process. If you've got a committee process that you need to go through for your sports club, make sure you've got those approvals, make sure your treasurer's on board, all of their details are up to date, the constitution's there and up to date. A lot of clubs are also registered as companies, so make sure that you've got a director who's on board, because you'll need them at some point in the process to validate their details and have their ID and everything. So it's kind of nuts and boltsy and boring as it sounds. If you have those lined up and ready to go, then it makes everything a lot simpler behind the scenes, really.
Amazing, thank you. Such brilliant advice, and it's so lovely to see such a wonderful local club do so well as well. We've all been very excited about having you on today, cheering for the Cornwall girls. Would you mind hanging around in the background for a minute? I'll just run through a few more slides and then we can get to these questions. Wonderful, thank you. We'll see you in a moment. So a great example of a lovely project there that I'm sure you can take some really great inspiration from. I know Charlie's shared the link to the page into the chat box, and also some brilliant advice as well to take away. So in terms of that kind of support that we have, and both Kate and Rachel there were talking about, coming to the webinars and making use of the support that we have on offer. We've got a wealth of knowledge and resources for you to make use of. So we have these webinars. We also have drop-in sessions each week that you can book on via Eventbrite. You can come and talk to one of the team via Zoom. You'll meet other project owners and you can ask any questions about crowdfunding and your campaigns during those sessions. We've got online learning and guides. So we've got the Learn platform, which we will share a link to for you guys to take away and go and work your way through. We have a knowledge hub as well, which is full of loads of guides and hints and tips on how to make the most of every single stage of your crowdfunding campaign. Once you sign up to Crowdfunder, you will start receiving those tailored emails when we'll be able to signpost you in the right direction, specifically for sports and crowdfunding for sports clubs. We have a really wonderful, dedicated customer support team down here in Cornwall. It's a small team. As you can imagine, they have lots of queries coming through. So the best thing to do, what I always recommend, is to check out our help centre first. It's got loads of troubleshooting guides and advice on how to kind of set up the mechanics of the pages, any questions to do with crowdfunding. And then if you can't find the answer there, then by all means get in touch with our customer support team. And we also have a live project dashboard. So once you go live with your project, you can monitor and manage every single aspect of the campaign throughout that dashboard, and you can apply for those extra funds through there as well. This is just a very quick snapshot of our Learn platform. So it's a really user-friendly 4-part online course. It's an introduction to crowdfunding, and then the planning, creating and running modules. It will give you good examples of that perfect project page, making it really engaging and visual, how to communicate with your crowd, the importance of building your network and a network map. All of that is included in this wonderful course. So make sure you make the most of that too. Okay, Charlie's done a great job at fielding some of these questions into the Q&A section. So if I could invite back Kate and Rachel and Nadine, we'll see if we can get through as many of these as we can. Thank you, welcome back. Okay, so we've had a question come in from Lisa asking, can a club crowdfund more than once? Absolutely. We do see lots of people come back to crowdfunding time and time again. This can be really useful if you've got a big project that you could maybe split into different phases, for example. So you might want to crowdfund for phase 1 for a smaller amount of money to be able to get something completed. And then maybe 6 months down the line, 12 months down the line, you might want to come back to us and crowdfund towards a different element of that project. Our advice from Crowdfunder would be to give yourself and your crowd enough of a breather in between coming back to crowdfund again. And I'm sure, Kate and Rachel, you would say the same, that you probably need a bit of a break after running a crowdfunding campaign. And you want to also make sure that your community and your crowd aren't kind of experiencing what we call crowd fatigue, where you'll kind of end up bombarding them by this constant crowdfunding idea, and actually they tune out from the message. It's better off giving a bit of a break in between. And in terms of funding, Nadine, I know that you guys have supported sports clubs for different areas of a bigger project or for different projects. You won't necessarily fund the same thing, but you may well fund again. Is that right?
Absolutely, Zoe. As you touched on, we've seen many clubs and organisations come in with a second campaign, basically following the same thing that you said, leave it a few months until you do another one. And we have seen cases where it's because the work is phased, and it would be eligible, any kind of second or onward campaign would be eligible for extra funding from us, providing it's not for the same expenditure. And one of the key things I just add with follow-up campaigns, the key thing is to also make it look and feel different from your first campaign. So people don't land on your new campaign and think, hold on, have I already pledged to this? If it looks new, they'll know that they haven't.
Amazing, great advice. This has come through from Lee. Can you have the active together and places and spaces running at the same time? So I'm going to interpret that as, could a project receive funding from both of those funds at the same time?
So unfortunately, you can't. You can only be considered under one of our funds. If you're in doubt about which fund your project is better suited to us, you can email us at internalcaf@sportengland.org, and we can take a deeper look at your project and give you some advice on perhaps which fund you might be more suitable to.
Perfect, thank you. And then this one in from Tom. What are the consequences of reaching your target with fewer than the required number of supporters?
So for us, if we do decide to pledge on a campaign, as you touched on earlier, Zoe, you need to raise 25% of your target from a minimum number of supporters. So we would need you to reach that unique supporter number before our pledge would land on your page.
Perfect, thank you. And then in terms of kind of securing that pledge, they would need to then go on and hit 100% of their target overall.
Yeah.
With that. Perfect, thank you. Question from Sam. I think we've just covered that one, Sam, in terms of, we've got what happens if you hit 25% of your target without achieving the minimum number of supporters, but do achieve the correct number of supporters later with a higher level donation. As Nadine's just covered there, in order to receive that pledge and have it land on your page, that won't happen until you've hit both of those required milestones. So the unique supporter numbers and also that 25% raised. Okay, just moving on. This in from Sarah. What makes an applicant eligible? It's quite a difficult one to answer during this session, and I would recommend going and having a look at the eligibility criteria for both of those funds. But there are certain things that kind of are across the board, aren't there, Nadine, such as being a not-for-profit organisation, for example. Is there anything else that would be kind of a generalised eligibility for those funds?
Yeah, so exactly as you say, Zoe, not-for-profit and set up in a way to be eligible for public funding. So, passing basic governance checks, things like that.
Perfect, thank you. This one in from Alison. Do you have to have rewards? In terms of crowdfunding overall, no, you don't need to offer rewards. However, we do know that it can really incentivize people's giving, and that it can increase the amount that they actually pledge on your campaign per transaction. And also it can be a really wonderful way to give something back to your supporters. In terms of the extra funding for Sport England, I'll let you answer that one, Nadine.
Yeah, so for us, you will need to offer rewards in order to be eligible from a pledge from us, because this is rewards-based crowdfunding. So we will need to see some rewards on your campaign page.
Perfect. This one in from Sam. How far in advance of the proposed campaign or start date should we start applying for match funding? So how long does the process take? Does it matter that we're only just starting to gather rewards in place, or should we wait until we have everything in place on the page, almost as if they're ready to go live before they actually put those applications in?
Yeah, so from our perspective, we would definitely advise you to apply to our funds before you launch your page. And once an application comes through, the process is quite quick. As a team, we take a look at your campaign over a couple of days, and then we try to get a decision back to you. If in the first instance it's a decline, we do offer some feedback on things you can do to improve your page, and then you're more than welcome to come back in for a second look where we have another look at your campaign and make a decision then. But the key takeaway is, if you can, get as much of the page ready as you can, put an application in before you launch.
Brilliant. Just to answer Lee and Lisa's questions, in terms of that approval, you've just covered that. It's normally a really quick turnaround. I guess allow time, as you've mentioned, for any potential improvements that might need to be made. But I think, like kind of Kate and Rachel mentioned there, that actually putting that planning in place ahead of time, getting yourself to a point where actually you've ticked all those boxes of those requirements that we cover in these kind of sessions of talking to yourself, Nadine, and looking at what we give sports clubs and looking at other clubs as well to go, right, okay, I need rewards, it needs to be engaging, I need to think about my wider community. Can we pop a video up there and then we'll put our applications in, is a great idea. And for Lisa, for your question, ideally 4 to 5 weeks is optimum for a live crowdfunding campaign. How long did you run yours for, Kate and Rachel?
Too long. We thought we were being clever by doing 8 weeks to go over 2 paydays.
Yeah.
It was quite long.
Did you find that you had that kind of middle period where people were kind of less engaged with what was going on? Was it hard to kind of keep that momentum through that period? Or did you have lots of stuff in place?
Well, we sort of had some natural lulls, I think. So, we kept running out of rewards. Like we went, oh, that'll do, wasn't it? So we were still collating rewards throughout the whole campaign. So we had new ones come in up until the final week, which was great. So we had stuff we could then keep pushing out. So it's sort of, was difficult.
It did ebb and flow a bit with that.
It did.
Really.
Yeah.
But with the rewards, I mean, we still had rewards being offered because we had people that perhaps couldn't afford to donate, but could afford to donate their time or their service. So we had some come in from, sort of small business owners. So it's quite good to keep putting those rewards in. But yeah, the 2 payday thing was our aim, and it did work though.
Yeah, it's good to have certain kind of events or paydays in mind when you're launching. Like, think about when you're going to launch, like the sporting calendar. Is there anything coming up which you could utilize to help your fundraising? But really, we know from kind of the data over the years that around 4 to 5 weeks is a really brilliant amount of time so that the project owners can stay motivated and keep up the momentum. Your crowd doesn't start kind of suffering that crowd fatigue that we talk about, and you can kind of combat any potential lulls over that period of time. Sometimes projects think that if they extend for a very long period of time, that may then bring in future donations. But I think unless you've got something happening or some promotion that you've got on the cards, it might not necessarily have that desired effect. But you did really well to keep that momentum up for that long, in all fairness to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we had to work very hard at keeping it go. We managed to reach out to media and we got interviews on the local radio and that type of stuff. And we also, one of the interesting things is we actually, because of the period of time as well, we actually got another grant in, which they actually gave us on the back of our crowdfunding. So we got another £750 from a different area, which was really straightforward, which was our sort of backup plan to make sure we got some money. I think all of our decisions that we'd probably redo again now were based on being like a little bit nervous about it. So the length of time was definitely about being anxious and a bit nervous. Going, how could we possibly get £5,000 seems like a huge amount from never having done it before to get in 4 to 5 weeks. The reality was we did it because of the Sport England match. We did it in like three weeks, I think.
Yeah.
And then we set our stretch target, which was 6,500, and we were going, well, that couldn't possibly be possible, okay. And again, that got beaten as well. So I think it's sort of like trusting the platform and, kind of what's going on is really important. And I know that's really difficult. And we were guilty of not entirely trusting you can do it in 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah.
It's scary. Scary. Learning to trust the process is as difficult as the other parts of it. There's been some really brilliant questions, and I think a lot of them we've actually covered throughout the course of the session as well, which is great. There's some brilliant links that Charlie's put into the chat box, which will cover off some of the questions in more detail about, types of rewards that you could offer and signposting you to those different areas. In terms of next steps for people, I think which would be really key, I'll pop up a slide in a minute for you all. We will make sure to send out that replay with all of those signposting links too. But I think for today, it would be brilliant just to thank you all for joining me and thank everybody for their wonderful questions. So thank you so much, Nadine and Kate and Rachel, for all of your wonderful advice and your tips, and congratulations on such a great campaign as well. Please go and check out the Liskeard Looe Girls Rugby Club project, everyone that's here today. It will give you really good inspiration to be able to put your own projects together. I just would like to finish on a poll, if we don't mind. So I'll just pop this last one up, just to see how confident you might be feeling now after today's session on actually taking those next steps. And all that remains is to say thank you very much for joining me, and good luck with the future of the club. And thanks, Nadine, as well. And we'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.